Hello and welcome to Liberty's writing lesson. This is the fourth video of our writing course, so if you want to watch the other videos, I'll leave the link in the description. This video will consist of two parts. The first part will be the integrated writing and the second part will be the independent writing. Okay, this is the fourth question of the TOEFL exam. By this time, you should already have a very good understanding of the whole TOEFL structure. So if you don't, shame on you, because there's no way you will understand this. So in that case, just go and watch our video on the general structure of the TOEFL, okay? And you're all set. So now let's get to business. Before getting on to the content though, I gently ask you to subscribe to this channel, okay? We're growing very rapidly thanks to all of our subscribers, and I will keep on posting videos like this because we know that you like it. Also, don't forget to give us a like and leave a comment below if you have any questions regarding the TOEFL exam. Don't forget to share this video with your friends also, you need to help them out. Now let's get to the integrated writing lesson. Okay, so the integrated writing section. This might be the best thing that ever happened to the TOEFL. Psych, I'm only kidding, okay? Because in my years of experience, over a decade teaching for the TOEFL, tutoring people for the TOEFL, I can say that this is maybe the hardest section with speaking. Kind of, they go hand in hand, okay? People sometimes don't understand what they're being asked to do. So this is an integrated section because if you already watch our videos on speaking, you understand that being integrated means that basically they're going to give you information from different sources. So in this case, you get a reading, then you get a listening, and then you need to produce an essay. You need to write something about that information. So that's what being integrated means. They are combining information from different sources. All right? They're mixing everything up, and that's what could make this a little difficult. So the first thing that you'll get is a small passage, a reading. All right? It's a reading that you will need to read in under 3 minutes. This passage will contain an academic topic, and you need to read it, just like this, right? Once you've read the passage, then you're going to get an audio, a listening audio, okay, in which a professor will be discussing something related to the reading that you just read. Now, the reading will always be shown, so while you're typing your essay, you'll be able to see the reading, okay? So you don't need to take as many notes for the reading. Now, the listening is totally different though. The listening, the audio will be played only once, so you need to take very good notes of the audio. Now, if you want to learn how to take good notes of the audio, I'll give you some tips here at the end of the video in the section of tips and tricks. But this is very similar to the listening section, right? Basically, taking notes for this section is the same thing as taking notes for listening. Now, what I recommend you do is go watch our video for the listening section if you truly want to understand the basics of note-taking and also want to get some advanced strategies. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go over the times that you need or that you have in order to answer this question, to write your essay, and then we're going to go over what you need to do in order to get a good score. Okay, so here are the times. You have 3 minutes to read the article. Actually, 3 minutes is a lot, okay? Most articles could be read in under 2 minutes, so they are not long. They are kind of on the short side. As I told you before, you need to take notes, but not as many notes as the listening, because the reading will always be shown. Okay, you'll always be able to go back and read the article. Now the listening will consist in a fragment of a lecture most of the time, and will be between 2 and 3 minutes long. And you need to take very good notes of that listening because, as I told you before, it will be played only once, unfortunately. And then you get 20 minutes to write your essay. So those are the times. Now we're going to go over what you need to do. What's of course, I have to produce an essay, I have to write an essay, but what's this essay going to be about? Now, first of all, let me talk a little bit about the word count. How many words you should have in your essay overall. Now, if you go and read some older books, they recommend somewhere between 175 words and 225. Now, I don't recommend that. That's kind of too short. Okay, that's too short. So in my experience, the best essays are around 300 words, right? So it could be 280, 290 maybe, but close to 300. Okay, otherwise it's just gonna look like you don't really want to write because you don't know how to write. Okay, so one important thing the message you want to send to the person who's reviewing your essay is that you're comfortable writing. Okay, the reading will be giving some information. Most likely it will be giving an argument, and then it will contain some supporting evidence or supporting arguments on top of that. Okay, so it will be trying to sell something. The reading will be for or against something. Then you get the audio. The professor will be discussing the reading's point of view. Most of the time there will be a negative relationship, so the professor will be saying some counter evidence to what the reading just mentioned. Okay, but sometimes it could also be a good positive relationship, and the professor will be reinforcing what the reading mentioned, what the reading stated. So let me give you an example here so you understand really clearly. So the first relationship we could have between the reading and the listening will be one of contrast. So let's say the reading states a position, right? Neanderthals could talk. So that's a position of the reading. And then it will give you two pieces of support. So the first piece would be the Neanderthals had a vocal cord similar to humans. So that's the first reason why the author of the reading thinks that the Neanderthals could talk. Now, the second piece of evidence would be the paintings have been found in which the Neanderthals appear to be singing. So there are some paintings. So that's what the reading is about. That's what the author is trying to communicate. He or she believes that the Neanderthals could talk. Now, what does the professor believe? In this example, the professor in the lecture, his position is to challenge the information given on the reading passage. The first argument he or she has would be that having vocal cords is not enough to make speech. So maybe they say that those vocal cords are enough to produce sound, but not to produce words. Okay? And then the second argument or counter argument from the professor would be that other animals sing but don't talk. For example, birds. So there you see, this is a relationship of contrast in which the reading is saying something and the professor is giving counter evidence. So you should focus on that, and that's what's going to be the main topic basically on your essay. You need to write about that. But then we could also have a different relationship, a positive one. Okay, this is not as common as the contrast, but it's also possible. Okay, so here you have a solution, right? Now the reading says, for example, the position of the author in the reading is that it is difficult for humans to colonize Mars. First evidence is that rocket technology is not advanced enough to keep oxygen for so long. That's the first argument he makes. And the second would be that it is not currently possible to get electricity necessary to fight the cold temperatures. So the professor here in the lecture will be offering a solution. So he'll be basically saying, okay, what the reading says is true. I'm not going to challenge that. But over time, we have developed some tools that might change that point of view. Okay, so the position of the professor is to offer solutions. The first argument would be that oxygen could be injected directly into the bloodstream. Okay, so you can inject the oxygen, so there wouldn't be a problem with the rocket technology anymore. And the second argument would be that electricity could be obtained from a nuclear power console. So in this case, the professor is not challenging the reading. He's not saying that what the reading says is wrong, but he is providing a solution in order to change our perception of this topic. Okay, so now what you need to do, this is a big question, right? So what you need to do is you need to write about the relationship between the reading and the professor in the lecture. Now, what I want you to do is remember the speaking lesson. All right, if you haven't watched our speaking lesson, then shame on you, because speaking comes before writing. You need to be organized, okay? Don't be lazy. I'll leave the link in the description here and go watch that lesson. In that lesson, we mentioned that most integrated questions for the speaking section didn't ask for your opinion, okay? The same thing applies here. In this integrated question, nobody is asking about your opinion. Nobody cares about your opinion, okay? In this question. Okay, I don't mean to be mean, but that's the truth. Okay, if you introduce your opinion there, you're gonna get a low score because nobody's asking about it. Okay, so you need to really refer to the question. You need to go and write about the reading, especially about the listening, and see how, or talk about how they are connected. What's the connection? What's the relationship between those two? Okay, I'll give you examples later on full essays, but that's the thing. You need to focus on the relationship between those two. How is the professor answering? How is he adding? How is he challenging the information given on the reading? Perfect. So now that you have a general idea of what to do, we're going to go over the notes, all right? Note-taking. Note-taking is crucial for this section. So the notes you should have at the end of the listening are this. You took notes for the reading and you took notes for the listening. So from the reading, you want first of all the position. Okay, that's very important. What is the author trying to argue? Okay, in the case before, it was that Neanderthals could talk, right? That was the position, and you should have that in your notes. And then you should have the supporting arguments. Argument 1 and the details, argument 2 and the details. You don't need to go crazy over the details because as we've mentioned before, you are going to be able to read the article at any time you want. So just focus on the important pieces of information, okay? Now, when you take notes for a listener, you should do this kind of with a T, right? Like I'm doing here a T position, right? On the left, you're reading, on the right, you're listening. That's an option. Of course, you can play a little bit with it, but that's the most common way to do this, okay? And for the listening, you quickly want a relationship, if it's a challenge or if it's a solution. And then you want your arguments, argument 1 or counter arguments usually, right? Because the professor most of the time will be attacking or will be challenging the information on the reading. And now you want to make those parallelisms. Basically, you want to make those comparisons because the professor will be most of the time challenging or solving the reading point by point. So he'll be talking about the first point of the reading, then he'll go over the second argument of the reading and so on. So it'll be a comparison point by point, and that's what you want to get, okay? So that parallelism, because this is important. The first paragraph of the body of your essay should contain the first point by the reading and how the professor challenges it or how the professor solves it. And the second body paragraph should contain the second point by the reading and by the professor. So you are going to write one of the points, one of the arguments in every paragraph, okay? That's why it's important for us to have that clear in our notes. Now we've gone over the notes, we've gone over the times. Okay, you kind of know what to do, what you're being asked to do, right? Now we're going to go over the examples, over the live examples, because I've found out that people love them, all right? That's what they ask us for. And that's the best way for you to learn this and to understand what you need to do here on this section. But before that, we're going to go over the template. Okay, now this template, of course, there are several templates. This is the template we've crafted here at Liberty Test Prep. Nobody's forcing you to use it, but it's in your best interest to do it. So here we go to the template. Now the template looks something like this. You have an introductory paragraph. You have a first body paragraph in which you are going to discuss the first point. Second body paragraph. In case there's a third argument, you need to have a fourth paragraph, right? So this is a template that I recommend. It's a template that will help you out with a lot of things. And we'll leave the template here in the description below if you want to download it. Now, it will help you a lot with, for example, transition words. It will make your whole essay look better, sound better, because it gives you the right transitions. Transitions are crucial for any essay, okay? Otherwise, everything is going to sound like it's mixed and all put together, and that's not good, okay? Because that's kind of messy. And this template would also give you more words, big words and longer phrases, so you comply with the word limit. Remember, we talked about this before, and we mentioned that your final essay should be around 300 words at the end. And a lot of students have problems reaching that word count, usually because they don't employ a good template. Okay, so with this template, it will be easy for you to get that word count. So, okay, now you know the structure of the whole exam. If you don't know, then go watch our introductory video for the TOEFL, but it's very important that you understand the structure before you start watching the more advanced videos, okay, like this one. You also know everything about the times. We've gone over the times. You also know everything about note-taking. If you want to learn something more, let's say a little bit more advanced about note-taking, go to our listening lesson, all right, our lesson for the listening section of the TOEFL. And you also know what to do in this section, what we're asking you to do for this integrated essay. And you've also subscribed to this channel, because if you haven't, then shame on you, okay? If you haven't really subscribed to the channel. And now we're gonna go and do the live examples, okay? This is the favorite part for most people. Now stay after the examples though, because we're gonna go over tips and tricks right after them. So we're gonna do two examples. The first example, a reading will be shown, okay? For 3 minutes, you need to read it, and then you'll listen to an audio for maybe 2 to 3 minutes. Take notes, okay? This is very important. Take notes of information in that lecture, and then you're gonna write your essay for 20 minutes, okay? At the end of those 20 minutes, pause the video, of course, to write your essay. I don't wanna make this video too long. And then compare your essay to mine, okay? Now, the important thing is, while you're writing your essay, you can see, you are allowed to go back to the reading passage, okay? Not the listening, but to the reading passage. Okay, so let's start with example number 1. Now listen to part of the lecture about a topic that you just read about.
Other examples of these phenomena of group behavior can be provided. In regard to the de-individualization that occurs in groups, it's quite true that people in large groups tend to lose their individuality and self-awareness and behave in ways that they normally would not if they were alone. And this type of behavior is known as de-individualistic behavior. This de-individualism can lead to pro-social behavior. De-individualistic behavior is not always antisocial. One example of pro-social de-individualistic behavior might be what can occur during a period of shared emotional pain after some sort of cataclysmic event. When people band together as a group and take part in an outpouring of kindness as a group that they might not have taken part in individually. Another example of pro-social de-individualistic behavior might take place after an exciting contest that an underdog wins, when the audience members who are extraordinarily pleased with the result get caught up with an overwhelming display of approval. Far more than any individual would display alone. In regard to the polarization that takes place in groups, it's quite true that when like-minded people get together in a group, it's quite common for them to arrive to a decision that is far more extreme than a decision that any one member of the group would have arrived at individually. And this type of behavior is known as polarization. This polarization doesn't always have to lead to antisocial behavior. It can also lead to pro-social behavior. One example of polarization that leads to pro-social behavior is the actions of a group of townspeople who, after suffering individually for years at the hands of the town bully, finally band together to rid the town of the bully. Another example of polarization that leads to pro-social behavior is a group of employees that have suffered individually for years under a horrible and sadistic boss, who band together to get rid of the boss.
What does information presented on the listening passage add to the information presented on the reading passage? Okay, perfect. So here are my notes. These are the notes I took for the reading and the listening. Of course, I have a T, like I told you in the note-taking section. To the left, I have the reading. On the right, I have the audio. And basically, I'm trying to be as organized as I can be. Okay, of course, I understand that when we're rushing, it's very difficult for us to have a good writing, but we have to try to do it as best as we can, because if we have too many things that we can't understand, then it becomes really difficult for us to start working in our essay, okay? And here we have my essay. Of course, the most important thing I would say in this kind of essay, this integrated writing, the introductory paragraph is very important, because that's where you are setting the relationship. Basically, you're establishing the relationship in the introductory paragraph. So, in my case, what I found the relationship was that the reading was giving examples of antisocial behavior, while the professor in the audio was giving examples of something that was different, of the opposite, of prosocial behavior. So that's the relationship right there, because both of them are talking about the same topic, the individualization. Now, once I've said relationship, then I can go and expand on it on each of the paragraphs, but the important thing is the relationship. Okay, now, when I'm writing my paragraphs, of course, I refer back from the audio to the reading, right? For example, in the first paragraph, right, moreover, I'm using a lot of the template, right? First, blah, 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 then it says, while it is true that blah, blah, blah. So basically, those kind of resources are important because they refer back to the audio, to the reading. So those things are essential, okay? Just read this one. This essay would easily get a 5. Okay, it's not perfect. It's not the prettiest essay, but it kind of fulfills all of the requirements. Okay, so it complies with every single requirement. We're going to see later in the rubrics what the requirements are. And this essay is enough to get the maximum score. Perfect, so now let's start with example number 2. The same thing. First, the reading for 3 minutes, then you get the listening audio, and then you have 20 minutes. You need to pause the video, of course, to write your essay. At the end, compare it to mine. Okay, let's go. Now listen to part of the lecture about a topic that you just read about.
Offering employees the option of a 4-day workweek won't affect the company profits, economic conditions, or the lives of employees in the ways the reading suggests. First, offering a 4-day workweek will probably force companies to spend more, possibly a lot more. Adding new workers means putting much more money into providing training and medical benefits. Remember, the costs of things like health benefits can be the same whether an employee works 4 days or 5. And having more employees also requires more office space and more computers. These additional costs would quickly cut into company profits. Second, with respect to overall employment, it doesn't follow that when some employees choose a 4-day work week, many more jobs will become available. Hiring new workers is costly, as I argued a moment ago. And companies have other options. They might just choose to ask their employees to work overtime to make up the difference. Worse, companies might raise expectations. They might start to expect that their 4-day employees can do the same amount of work they used to do in 5 days. If this happens, then no additional jobs will be created and current jobs will become more unpleasant. Finally, while a 4-day workweek offers employees more free time to invest in their personal lives, it also presents some risks that could end up reducing their quality of life. Working a shorter week can decrease employees' job stability and harm their chances for advancing their careers. 4-day employees are likely to be the first to lose their jobs during an economic downturn. They may also be passed over for promotions, because companies might prefer to have 5-day employees in management positions to ensure continuous coverage and consistent supervision for the entire workweek.
What does information presented on the listening passage add to the information presented on the reading passage? Okay, so here are my notes. My notes are very clear and concise. I'm using a T again. I'm being very careful to write clearly. Okay, my writing has to be clear for me not to get lost later on when I'm trying to write the essay. And of course, I'm writing the point by point, right? So I have argument 1 from the reading, and then on the right, argument 1 from the audio, the professor in the lecture, okay? So just read my notes, and then we're gonna go to my answer. So this is my answer. My answer is following the template. I have everything really well established. Of course, this answer is more than enough to get the maximum score here in the TOEFL writing section. And just pause the video, analyze my answer, see how I'm doing those referrals, see where I'm placing those keywords, because that's very important for you to kind of try to do the same and get a good score, okay? So that's the example. Okay, so tips and tricks for the integrated writing section, okay? Now, the first tip I can give you is you need to understand the rubrics. Basically, you need to understand how they are going to compute your score, okay? How they're gonna give you the score, what they want from you. Now, a lot of people don't understand that, and that's kind of driving with your eyes closed, okay? You don't know where you're going. So that's the same thing here. You need to understand where you're going, what they want from you in order for you to give them what they want, okay? So I'm gonna show you the rubrics right now. So here are the rubrics. Now, in order for you to get a 5 is a maximum score, okay? The score goes from 0 to 5. Now, if you get a 0, it's because you didn't even try. But if you want to get the maximum score, a 5, let's read this. It says, a response at this level successfully selects the important information from the lecture and coherently and accurately presents this information in relation to the relevant information presented in the reading. The response is well organized, and occasional language errors that are present do not result in inaccurate or imprecise presentation. Now, this is very important though, because now you can see that in order for you to get a 5, there are basically 2 components, right? Relationships and grammar. So the first one they mentioned is relationships. So you need to establish the relationship between the reading and the listening very clearly. If you do that, then you're safe. You get a good score, okay? And the other part is the grammar, that you don't make too many grammatical mistakes that make it difficult to read your essay. Okay, so that's what they're asking from you. The most important component is to establish very clearly the relationship between the reading and the listening. So basically, for the person who's reading your essay, it's got to be very clear to understand what or how the professor is answering to the reading. How is the professor responding to the information on the reading? Okay, that's got to be totally clear. Tip number 2, note taking. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about note taking because it's very important. Okay, if you don't get good notes here, there's no way you're going to write a good essay, because that's the input, that's the source. The information we'll be giving here, part of information, and the most important part actually, will be given in the listening. Okay, so the same things that apply to the listening section apply here as far as note taking. You need to be very organized. Now, my take on this is take as many notes as you can. Okay, let's say you're so fast that you can transcribe the whole audio, then do it. Okay, of course, nobody can do that. Okay, but that's an idea. Just get as many notes as you can. Focus on the connectors, because the professor will be saying, but on the other hand, focus on the beginning of the paragraphs, right? Because the professor says, for example, first, blah, blah, blah. So he's beginning a new paragraph, and you need to take really good notes of that, because that will be most likely attacking or doing something to the first argument of the reading. Okay, so those kind of things, those connectors, those enunciations of first, second, third, those numerations or contrast keywords, however, but, although, those are very important for you to understand the whole speech or the whole lecture of the professor. Now, as we've been saying though, the same thing that applies to the listening section applies here. So go and watch the listening section again, okay, again, because there you'll find some advanced strategies for note taking. Tip number 3, transition words. Okay, any good essay needs lots and lots of transition words. You need to be able to enumerate your paragraphs. You need to be able to connect the ideas whenever there is information that is being contrasted, right? A challenge, for example, the professor is challenging the information on the reading, then you need to use some contrast keywords. Okay, you need to use addition keywords if you want to add additional sentences. So this is very important. I cannot overemphasize. Now, how do you comply with these transitions? Now, well, use a template. That's what the template is for. The template is there to help you. The template will give you a lot of transitions. Okay. Now remember, the template is here at the description, so you can download it and just use it. Okay, because if you can't come up with transitions on your own, there you have the template to help you out. And tip number 4, something that is very, very important. You need to make references. References back to the information. So for example, when I start writing one paragraph, I start writing about what the reading said, right? What the reading stated, and then I'm going to write about what the professor stated. But once I write about the professor, I need to refer back to the information in the reading, because of course the professor is attacking or solving maybe the reading, right? So I need to include some words in there that make that relationship, that make that link. Okay, so let me show you. So number 1, for example, says the professor mentions that group behavior could also be prosocial. And that also is very important, because he's referring back to the passage and saying that's not the only outcome. It's not only antisocial, it could also be prosocial. So basically that's showing knowledge of the whole context. Okay, that's important. Now, number 2, the professor, on the other hand, does not think that all people have an antisocial behavior, as the passage states. So I say a couple things here, right? On the other hand, because I'm showing contrast to the passage, and also the word or the phrase as the passage states, because I'm basically attributing to the passage that that opinion. So that's very important here. And rather, she believes that group behavior could in fact lead to prosocial behavior. So those 2 words, rather and in fact, are used to emphasize the professor's position against the information on the reading. Now, all these tips have been directed at teaching you how to organize, how to establish the relationships you found on the reading passage and on the lecture, okay, which is the first component of the whole rubric. But if you want to learn how to write good sentences, if you want to learn grammar, right, how to structure your paragraph, how to build a grammatically correct sentence, then you need to stay tuned for our next video, which is that independent writing. In that video, we'll be going over how to write a nice and neat paragraph, something that is grammatically correct and also that is clear and conveys the message that you want to. So if you want to learn more about that, go and watch our next video for the independent writing section. So that's been it with me. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and click on the notification bells to receive the latest information. And give us a thumbs up if you found this video useful. My name is Rod. I'm with Liberty Test Prep, and thank you so much for your time.